Good to be with you, boys and girls, again. Today's story comes from the Bible, but it's one that you might not remember. There was this big city with thousands and thousands of people living in it, and some bad soldiers came to the city, and they all camped outside it, and they wouldn't let anybody come out of the city, and they wouldn't let anybody come into the city, and they were hoping that the people would gradually eat up all the food in their city so they hadn't got any more food. So then they'd have to come out of the city to try and get food. They were all right, the bad soldiers. They brought plenty of food with them. They were outside. Well, things got so bad in the city that there was hardly any food left and people didn't know what to do. And one man had the idea of going out with a bucket and catching all the bird droppings. There's a block, the birds were flying through the sky and they were going to the toilet and he got it. And he got that one too. I missed that one. But gradually he got some in there and he was able to eat it all. It was really horrible, terrible stuff the bird droppings were, but better than being starving hungry. Well, somebody saw what he was doing and they said to him, "Can you get us some bird droppings? Can you get us some? Because we're not much good at it. We tried with a bucket, but we can't get it." He said, "No." He said, "I've got to get it for myself." He said, "I'll tell you what we'll do. If you give me £30, I will give you some of the bird droppings that I've got, and I'll get them now." And they said, "All right, we'll give you £30 and you give us some of the pigeon's muck." So that's what he did. He got some more. And he said, "Right, here we are then. This is what you're going to have. I'm tipping out now the pigeon's muck. And that's yours, and you've got to give me £30 for that. And if you want any more, it costs you another £30. That's how terrible things were getting, that people would pay £30 for some pigeon's muck to eat. But it was worse for two ladies. Two ladies had babies. They both had a baby each. And they were starving, these ladies, and they said, "Look, why don't we do this? Why don't we kill our babies and eat them?" These were different babies to the ones we spoke about before. You remember with Solomon and his sword, this is a different one. So they said, "All right, let's do that." So they killed the baby, put it in the big pot, put it in an oven and cooked it. And then they got their knife and fork and they ate the baby. See? But then they got hungry again, so they said, "Well, now it's time to eat your baby. We've already eaten my baby. It's time to eat your baby, this one here." But the mother said, "No, you're not going to eat my baby." She said, "Well, that's not fair. We ate my baby. You've got to give me your baby now." She said, "No, I'm not going to do that." So this lady went to see the king. And she said, "Look, this lady promised me that I could kill her baby and eat it, and she won't let me do that. Will you make her do that?" Isn't that terrible? That's how bad things were. So the king said, "This is all God's fault. God should have stopped the bad soldiers coming here. Then everybody would be all right. We wouldn't all be starving and doing these bad things. I'm going to send my top person, my top man, down to see Elisha the prophet, who represents God. And I'm going to say to him, because God has been so bad to us, we don't want to know God anymore. We don't want to hear about God anymore. He's no good. He's bad." So the top man went down to see Elisha, and he said to Elisha, "The king has sent me to tell you that we don't want God anymore. He's been bad to us. He's caused all this trouble. He could have stopped the bad soldiers coming and then people wouldn't be starving. It's all God's fault." And Elisha said, "No, it's not God's fault. It's your fault. It's people's fault. They've been bad to God. He hasn't been bad to them." And Elisha said to this man, "Tomorrow, at the same time of day, there'll be so much food in this city that they'll be kicking it around the streets. Everybody will be full up and not wanting to eat anymore, so they'll just be throwing it around." And this top man said, "What a load of rubbish. That's nonsense. Even if the bad soldiers went away, we couldn't go to any shops and buy food. Do you think that God's going to open a window in heaven and throw all the food down to us? Is that what you think? You people are stupid who believe in God. That's just stupid. That's just mad. Elisha said to him, you will see all the food tomorrow, but you won't be able to eat any of it. He said, well, that's another stupid thing. If there was food here tomorrow and I could see it, I'd certainly eat it. That night, God made a sound, only a sound, and it was a sound of horses galloping. Clippity-clop, 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 clippity-clop. There weren't any horses, it was just a sound of horses. And the bad soldiers outside the city, when they heard all these horses, they thought they must be coming here with soldiers on their backs to attack us and to kill us. So they jumped on their horses and they rode away as fast as they could, leaving all their food behind them. Now there were 4 men who were sick. They were lepers and they weren't allowed into the city. They belonged to the city, but they weren't allowed into the city, otherwise people might catch their disease off them. And they used to throw food over them, over the wall to them. But of course that stopped now because there wasn't any food. So they were so hungry, they said, why don't we go and see the bad soldiers and ask them to give us some food? They probably won't, they'll probably kill us, but at least we're trying, aren't we? So they went to see the bad soldiers, but the bad soldiers weren't there. They'd all gone off on their horses. But the food was all there, so the 4 sick men started eating all the food. Oh, they were having a great time. Lovely food, lots of it. They'd never had so much food before. And then they said, well, why don't we go and tell the people in the city that all this food's out here? So they went to the city. They knocked on the gate. They said to the man at the gate, the bad soldiers have gone away and all the food's out there and everybody should go out and try and find it. And the man at the gate said, I'll tell the king. Or when the king heard it, he said, it's a trick. The bad soldiers are hiding behind the trees and behind the bushes, and when we go out to get the food, they'll come out and they'll kill us. But he said, what I'll do, I'll send a soldier out on a horse, just one soldier, and see if the bad soldiers are there or not. And when the soldier came back, he said, it's true, the bad soldiers have gone, all that food's out there. So the king said, all right, we'll let all the people out of the city and they can collect all the food and eat as much as they can and bring the rest into the city. And that's what they did. That top man who had spoken so much against God, he was at the gate now and he was trying to control the people going in and out. And when the people were bringing all their food back, they couldn't carry it all. It was in sacks and boxes and bags, and food was dropping out onto the streets and people were kicking it around, just as was said. And the top man said, now stop this. You've got to control yourself. And nobody took any notice of him. In fact, they pushed him down to the ground. Then they started walking all over him. And as he was dying, he could see all the food, but he couldn't eat any of it, just like God had said. So all the people in the end, they got fed, and it was just like God had said. What do we learn from that story? First of all, everything God says is going to happen will happen. Secondly, don't say bad things against God, because that could lead you into a lot of trouble. Always love God. And thirdly, always be thankful for the food. We enjoy lots of food. Let's be thankful for that, and let's hope and pray that that will always be the case. Thank you.